So, before going to work tonight, in about 15 minutes, I did come home with a little bit of time left, and I wanted to talk about my first Furmeet experience. Ultimately, I did record some video, but it was only walking to the Furmeet, and I ultimately abandoned the video after that. Instead, what I'm going to do is one of the people there made a fursuit video that he will be posting to his TikTok. I will be putting his TikTok in the description, and you will be able to see essentially the fursuit video he made. With like 3 or 4 of them wanted to do a video, 2 of them didn't. Not really. But what I want to talk about is my experience. Despite not having a fursuit, I was involved in what was essentially a little miniature fursuit parade when they went around fursuiting. So when I initially went there, I did run into, I don't know what is it. Oh, before I delete the videos, I'm going to watch them back. I don't know if I was blind, but how did I miss someone in a furry suit head? Then, unfortunately, once I found her, I actually had to go back to get something to eat, and I did that. And just wasn't still really sure when everyone showed up. I will say they all had boxes with, well, not all of them, but most of them had boxes with them. And ultimately, they had their fursuits there. And we talked for about an hour, social anxiety getting the better of me again. Yes, I know it's time to work almost. Social anxiety getting the better of me again, trying to talk to them. But then what ultimately changed the attitude of the night for me was when they decided to fursuit. Everyone got 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them. 5 of them initially, and then someone joined us right after we started. They got in their fursuits. Some of them were in partials. In fact, they were all in partials, I think. You can watch the TikTok video to see. But they all had heads, paws, a tail, and some of them had legs. And they started walking around. And one of them was going to be like essentially a handler, had to go with them to handle them. And they said they were new too to the fandom. But they said, "Are you coming?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming." Because I wanted to see this. The whole reason I went there was to experience this. And so we had someone walking in front of them, and I just kind of trailed behind them. Essentially, the way I see it, maybe I was trying to be a handler for the mascots with one person, or I'm no, sorry for the fursuits with that one person who probably is still more experienced than me in front, and me behind, walking behind them, just kind of checking, make sure. I don't know what their visibility is, what their limit is, based on the fact there must have been some limitation. But we ultimately came to an area where it was like open and everyone gathered together for pictures. Again, just the people in fursuits in this case. Me and the other handler, I'm just going to call us, stayed out of the photos. But almost immediately the positivity started. People wanted photos with them. And the photos didn't stop. For several minutes, people were coming up to them, positive, I should say, and taking photos, and it was great. And then, as I said, they did take a break to make a TikTok video, which was interrupted by more furries. I did learn that TikTok is kind of the place to go for those shorts, and YouTube is more for cons, which is, of course, what I plan to do. Cons on YouTube, but looks like Sunray does have a TikTok. Looks like I'm gonna have to start using that once I have a suit properly. But Basically, what happened was after they were there, we walked back to the blanket we were sitting at and a little further to the food trucks. But something was very different this time. Something that really got me into the experience. I started walking first. Next thing you know, the five that at that point it had been six because a protogen had joined us. So six people are walking behind me. Before I knew it, I had become. If there was any question, I was a handler before. There was no question then, because I like tested it. When I slowed down, they slowed down, and this was unintentional, but I was unintentionally leading them. So I just went with it, honestly. It was the first time, so there was actually one point in that direct time where I got a little too far ahead, and the one person who I had initially made contact with, I forgot the persona name. I'm bad with names, even persona names. I'd kind of stepped. I had kind of stepped ahead. She'd been following me, and we kind of separated from the group a little bit. But thankfully, the rear handler basically called back to us, like, "Hey, come back. Someone wants a photo." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm a very fast walker, so we just turned back around, went back over there, and I wasn't sure if I was going too fast or too slow. From that point, I did kind of take things slow, kind of walk to the side, constantly look back to make sure that everyone was with us and that there was no one asking for photos. Then we made it to food truck, and essentially everyone kind of split up. Some people went one direction, and two of them wanted to go back to the mat. So, yeah, two of them wanted to go back to the mat, so I essentially guided them back. I don't know if they really needed me, but I guided them back at least part ways to the mat. One of them did take their head off eventually when we got back towards the mat, so I was like, "You all set?" And she was like, "Yep," so I went back to the other four. And it was just this interesting thing because, again, all this whole time, they were getting pulled over for pictures, even when it was still the six of them going back towards the food truck. Pictures, the four of them when we were heading back to the mat after they went a little further. Pictures, 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 pictures. And thankfully, all the interactions were positive. And the most interesting thing is, even though I'm not in any of the photos, maybe because, again, this had been the first time I had met any of them, but one positive thing, another positive thing I should say that came out of this, is there was no fear here of them in their suits. No fear at all. In fact, the whole time I looked at them, I saw all the positivity that came from them, all the people that wanted pictures, and dare I say I was probably more jealous. And tonight has only made me want a fursuit that much more, or at least a partial. And I know they were saying they were hot, and they were at some point taking their heads off. But for the most part, during that like 30-40 minute section, where we were fursuiting, where they were fursuiting, I really did feel like I was still a part of it. I was not in a fursuit myself, but essentially, I don't know if they need me, but they do say online that there are supposed to be handlers, someone checking them out, kind of clearing the way, maybe. Again, I don't like to speak and say I was absolutely necessary there. I don't know in the furry fandom how much is actually it's necessary to have a handler. But it felt like, even though I wasn't there, like if people looked at me and the other girl, we were always standing by the fursuiters at the same time. We were kind of, for the first quarter, she was leading them, I was following behind. Honestly, the second 3 quarters, I was leading. Maybe poorly at some points, but I was just trying to say, let's just make sure the way is clear for these guys. If someone wants a photo, wait, take a pause, see they're comfortable, just make sure that they're comfortable with it, that everyone else is comfortable, make sure things stay positive, which things always did, to the credit of the people in Uxbridge, Massachusetts. Things very much did stay positive, and every photo opportunity was a positive moment. And it felt good to, even though I'm not in a suit, to I I don't know if I really was officially a handler or not. Even if it's not official, I certainly felt like I was, because there were moments where I helped guide them. Like, I kind of picked something else up. Like, there was a curb. Like, one of the other person in the first quarter had told people look out for the curb. So in the last quarter, I was like, oh, we're taking a bit of a shorter way here. Look out for this curb here. I think I got a little too confident in them, and there was actually one point where I was kind of lead. We were almost back to the mat, and like a kid ran into one of them, and so that was like a oof moment where it was like, what? Maybe on one hand, I was thinking, was I being too cautious? Was I being too slow? And on the other hand, in that moment, I was like, I should have been more cautious. I should have looked out a little more. But give me a break, because, please, because that was my first time, essentially. If I was a handler, I was at least acting as a handler, or even if not officially a handler, I was trying to guide them and trying to keep the path clear for them. And I did feel, and this is the most important part, I did feel like I was involved. I wasn't just a follower like I was the first quarter. I wasn't just someone watching them. I did feel like I was there, like I was part of it, despite not being in the suit. And while I had the jealousy of the suit, just the experience of being there, of not only not having fear, but watching them and enjoying every second of it. There's no way to say this was, there's nothing to say except that this was a positive experience for me tonight. It's only made me want to fursuit more. It's only made me want to get more involved in the fandom. You know, if anyone ever wants to call on me to be a handler and I'm not, and I don't have my suit yet, yes, absolutely. You know, can kind of say that I've done it. Just guiding people. Unfortunately, I do have to cut this video short because I do have to work in 5 minutes. But I'm still planning on making the big edited 1 month video. And I'm planning on ending it with this again, this experience. There was no real negative moment. It was kind of like, I do think my social anxiety kind of got the better of me in those moments. But there was no question that going there tonight was the right choice, because for those 30, 40 minutes where I was essentially part of it or with them, watching them fursuit in real life, that eliminated any doubt in my head that someday I want to do that. It's just made me more determined to do it at some point. No matter how long it takes, I want a fursuit. I want to do that. Again, I know very little about the furry fandom. All I know now is I definitely want to be involved. So I will.